order. We were in executive session earlier, and we were going back to our public session, so I'm calling the meeting to order from Monday, November 19th, 2018. As required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Earlier, we had executive session to discuss a real estate issue related to Central Ave and also litigation about the Vaprino versus Harwich lawsuit. So, weekly briefing. Well, Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's kind of a sad duty that I want to report to you that Freeman Allison, who is a former selectman back in the mid-'80s, passed away unexpectedly this past weekend. I knew Freeman for quite a while, and so did a number of other people on the board. He spanned the period of time. It was a critical period of when we went from a full-time selectman to a part-time selectman. Could not find himself able to run for the part-time position because he couldn't afford it. He's an old-time Cape Codder, a gentle guy, an unassuming guy, and he's going to surely be missed in the community, as was his sister, who passed away just 3 months ago, a long-time lunch lady at Harwich High School, Linda Guinan. So it's just a sad time for their family, and I hope that we hold them all in our thoughts and prayers. And maybe we could have a moment of silence for him.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. We wish the family our deepest sympathies, and thank you for his service to the town of Harwich. So we'll move on to weekly briefing. Good evening. How are you?
Good. Noreen Donahue, Wastewater Committee. Good evening, Madam Chair and gentlemen. Regarding the wastewater Phase 2 sewer connection process, as you know, many of our residents are anxious about the cost of hooking up to the town main. Costs are estimated at $5,000 to $10,000, but could run a bit higher if the homeowner encounters variables such as the distance from the house to the property line and going around decks and driveways. I want to bring forward an item that may provide financial relief to some of the homeowners. On the State Department of Revenue website, you can find information on a tax credit called Schedule SC. The SC stands for septic credit, but this credit also covers all reasonable costs associated with hooking up, such as design and construction of your sewer service. The general guidelines are as follows. The credit is based on 40% of designated expenses and is capped at $6,000. So to receive the full $6,000, your connection expense would have to be $15,000. A $10,000 sewer service could earn up to a $4,000 credit. The credit is spread over up to 4 years and limited to $1,500 per year. The credit is limited to work done on a primary residence, and the owner must occupy the property. As always, you should check with your tax professional for how this credit might be helpful to your situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noreen. Very helpful information. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Anybody else for weekly briefing?
Thank you.
Hi,
Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director. I wanted to start by saying thank you. Today we packed up and sent out 4 boxes for the troops. Cape Cod Cares for the Troops. Again, all of that goes to individuals from Cape Cod who are serving. So I thank the community came forward and donated. It was very, very generous. So that's over. So now I'm in front of you because now we're starting our mitten drive. And a lot of you know that we do this each year. We work with Children and Family Services, and we get 50 names. All of those names are from Cape Cod. The majority of them are from right here in our own region, our own community. And what it is on the back of each mitten is a child's name, their age, and what they've asked for. So I just grabbed one on my way out the door. This is a child who is a 1-year-old female, and she asked for any clothing, socks, a book, and a toy. So all you have to do is come pick one up, stop at the desk, give us the name, and then have it back to us unwrapped by December 10th. So again, the community's always been great about helping us out with this, and these are families who are in true need this holiday season. So thank you. I know at this time of year I'm asking for a lot, but really it's for all of our neighbors and our friends, so thank you.
That's a wonderful program. Thank you, Carolyn. Anybody else for weekly briefing? Anybody for public comments and announcements? Good evening, Cindy.
Good evening. Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber, here tonight to remind everyone that this Saturday is Shop Small, small business, local shopping. At the Chamber, we're going to be open from 10 to noon, handing out bags with goodies from local businesses, and we'll have some music as well. So remember to come out and shop throughout Harwich. And then, believe it or not, I was talking to Julie outside earlier, next Friday starts Christmas in Harwich. Really sorry, but it is. It's November 30th to December 2nd, and I invite all of you to be with us during the tree lighting next Friday, November 30th at 5:30, and just check our website. Next week, I'll go through some of the things that are happening.
Great, thank you very much, Cindy. It's hard to believe. Anybody else for public comments and announcements? Ed?
Yeah, this Saturday, at the community center from 10 to 2, the Lower Cape and Eastham Kiwanis Club will be having a flea market / fair at the community center. The club has set up several tables, and a whole variety of individuals have bought a table, and so there's be a wide variety of items for sale for the holiday season, and the proceeds go into the Kiwanis Club's foundation fund for scholarships and bike rodeos and all sorts of things.
That's great. Great. Anybody else for public comment and announcements? Hearing nobody, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ed?
Yes. I'd like to present the consent agenda and move adoption of the item thereon. A vote to confirm the appointment of Robert Doan as the Historic District Historical Commission's representative to the Community Preservation Committee.
Term to expire June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any
June 30th,
further discussion?
Term to expire 2019. I wish they'd put that on.
I know.
Me too. That's why I keep an eye on it.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make a comment because we're still plodding along with the one-year appointments, and as you recall, the Charter Committee came in, and we're going to actually clarify that. But in the letter that requested, it said that it memorializes that they have elected. Nobody elects, at least the subordinate committees to the Board of Selectmen. They propose, we confirm, which is what we're doing.
Thank you. So it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? None. All in favor? Aye. Okay, excuse me. Move on to public hearings and presentations, the annual meeting for the Housing Authority. Good evening, John.
Good evening. John Stewart, the Housing Authority. I believe you have copies of my annual report in your packets.
We do.
So I will, I'll hit on the items that are not in there. The state is currently working to put together a online wait system, which they hope to have online for January. This will include the family and senior housing. The voucher wait list will be sometime probably next year. But once that's up and running, that will change the dynamic of our wait list greatly, which is a good thing. Currently, if someone's in a shelter, they have to send out so many applications a week to stay qualified. So they send them, they just give them a list of housing authorities. So we have several hundred people on our list, half of whom probably don't know where Harwich is. All of that will change under the new guidelines, so that's a very good thing. Getting it to work is another issue, but so far so good. We have, we've had a change in our board almost, or soon to have a change in our board. They have appointed Sandra Woodbridge as the state appointee. She is currently one of my sitting members, so I'm still going to end up with 2 vacancies. I do have a second person. I know someone had put in an application last time I was before you folks. I have a second individual who is filling out her paperwork to petition to be on the board. So we will be having a joint meeting at some point and hopefully go away with a full board.
Great.
Other than that, not a lot has changed, so.
Okay.
Any questions?
So, do any of the board members, Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not so much a question. John and I spent like a quality afternoon with each other. It's actually an opportunity because I've never seen this happen before, but the governor took one of the sitting elected members and transferred them into an appointee. So she's got to resign her current term, will be sworn in immediately for the other, but that gives us the opportunity to fill both of the remaining vacancies, not just one. The only thing that we need to do is we have to actually ask the staff to put a public notice in the newspaper so we can hold a joint meeting.
Right. Yeah, and I think Kristen,
I think we were holding off, waiting for applicants to come in.
Right.
We didn't want to schedule something if we didn't have anyone to review.
But
So I
they're at
think
the
we
point
have
where they've
all
only got
received
3
all.
people. They can't meet a quorum if any one person doesn't come to their meetings.
right. So we should get that scheduled.
We'll schedule it.
Sorry, Ed?
If through you, John, what's the status of the effort to appoint a tenant member?
They're still working on the guidelines to how all of that is going to happen. This individual who is currently filling out her application is a tenant. So
So in
I
that-
don't know
But
how
they are-
all of that will play out in the future, but we'll at least have a tenant on the board till May.
We do not have the authority to appoint them as a tenant, but we do have the authority to appoint them just as a resident.
Right.
And both of those appointments can only get as far as the next annual Maytown election, at which point whoever runs for the remaining period of each one of those terms.
Okay.
This was a long afternoon.
Yes, it was a very long afternoon, but we got it sorted out, so.
Ed, any other questions?
Well, no, I just know that that's been, quote, federal policy forever, and
Yeah.
it was surprising that it was never enforced in Massachusetts.
They tried, but they just went about it all wrong, so.
Yeah.
Michael, you have any
I'm
questions?
good, thank you, John.
No.
All right, okay. I don't either. Great report. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Housing Authority.
2 years.
Okay. We'll go on to the Water Commissioners. Hi, Alan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. It's nice to see you all, and it's a pleasure to come and visit with you. A little update, the Board of Water Commissioners is a 3-member elected board responsible to the town of Harwich to establish, construct, enlarge, improve, maintain, equip, operate, and regulate the Harwich Water Department, to include all the facilities, assets of the department. The Board of Water Commission is also responsible for the fiscal management of all the facilities assets with specific development issues such as capital improvements and land acquisition. Our board currently consists of myself, Alan Thompson is the chair, Gary Guerrero is our vice chair, and Judith Underwood is our clerk. And Judith happens to have I'm not sure, ankle or foot. And Dan Pelletier, our water superintendent, is with us. Currently, ongoing accomplishments over the past year. We currently have the Lower County Road project ongoing in conjunction with the DPW's plan to repave Lower County Road. So the Water Department is currently conducting a distribution system upgrades, including abandoning an 8-inch asbestos AC water main and moving water surfaces from the AC main to the existing 16-inch ductile iron water main, and installing in-line gate valves, installing T's and hydrants, and increasing the pipe diameter under the Allen's Harbor Bridge to address the pipe discontinuity. How far to the way? Somewhere between 3/4 and of completing the project. The big thing is the bridge, the water main under the bridge. It'll be nice to do that. We also invested in a new SCADA system. This is electronic controls for everything in the department, pumps, chemical pumps, all types of operations, when the pumps come on, when they go off. But the project, the SCADA, the project was described as a department goal in 2017 in a report to the Board of Selectmen. And I'm happy to report this project has been completed and operational since the spring of 2018. And the nicest part of it all is department staff. They engaged in the physical installation, update and the wiring of all instrumentation and controls and pumps, offering considerable savings to the town and the department. Estimated cost, and that was about $200,000. And then we also went into quarterly billing in June of this year. The department commenced quarterly billing. The process of billing quarterly billing allows for residents to be more conscientious of their water consumption and help users to identify potential leaks on their property more frequently. This can help prevent residents from receiving exceptionally high water bills in the thousands. And believe me, it is a problem. And the sad part of it is you'd like to help them, but you're just passing on the costs to those responsible water users. So we can't emphasize that enough. Pay attention. If you're leaving town, shut the water off, at least in the basement. If you're going away for the season, have the house drained and the water shut off. The capital plan, the Water Commission has spent months revising the department's capital plan. The board evaluated the aging infrastructure or water consumption forecast, revenue projections, and current debt schedule to identify and plan for future capital needs of the department. The department is currently working with T and Bond to review the final financial impacts of the proposed capital plan and how it will impact water rates. By doing this, we will be able to lay out an affordable and sustainable rate structure for the future. Water sampling and testing, we do over 900 routine water samples every year. In addition to the routine sampling, the department also conducted sampling in 2018 for lead and copper. The first round of the EPA's UCMR4 sampling, unregulated contaminant monitoring rule. In the water quality, there's a list of required in those 900, and this lead and copper is something that's just been added to begin, as Flint, Michigan issues and stuff of that nature. So the results for the lead and copper sampling came back well below the action levels established by Mass DEP. The UCMR4 sampling is put out by EPA to determine if they need to establish a drinking water standard for particular contaminants. This year, we received a 2018 Drinking Water Award again, and Mass DEP recognized the Harwich Water Department for the first time under a Beyond Compliance. We also received notification of the legislature in this award. Of the 776 water systems in the state, only 6 water systems received this award. This award is presented to the water systems for their continued effort in having been award recipients for the past 3 years. We've been award recipients for the last 12 years. So a message to the customers, resident water customers. The pumpage and consumption so far in 2018, the department has pumped just over 728 million gallons of water as of the end of October. This is approximately 70 million gallons more than this time last year. Our website at www.harwichwater.com provides our customers with many conservation tips, and we encourage our customers to practice water conservation on a regular basis. We also have a service type program. Offers a water service plan which provides coverage for repair and replacement of your old water service connection from your property line to your shut-off valve in the basement. Seasonal properties, the department provides seasonal turn-on, turn-off services. The board highly encourages seasonal winterization measures to ensure the safety of their water lines, their water meters, and their home. Irrigation use, the board can't express enough to our customers that conservation is considered when using irrigation. Customers should be familiar with the meter location and know how to read the meter, and this is an important measure to monitor water consumption, which also provides an opportunity to catch a water leak and make repairs to avoid high water bills. In closing, the Board of Water Commissioners would like to thank the Water Department staff, all of them, for their teamwork and dedication to the department and the boards, committees, and town management and town departments for their continued support and service to the Water Department. Any questions?
Thank you, Alan. Any questions, Larry?
Thank you, Alan. Good report. I do have one question, and that is the Lothram tank.
Yes.
If memory serves, that was cost less money to put in because it wasn't a tower, but
Yep.
It was going to cost a little more to operate.
Yep.
How's that panned out? Have your projections been pretty good on that? Is it costing more to operate than you expected, less? Just an update.
No, I think what are we running, 30,000 annually electrical? Yeah, somewhere between 30 and 40,000 a year for electrical costs.
Is that pretty close to your projection?
We probably projected a little less, but I shouldn't say that because we have a higher demand too.
Yeah.
So, but we're also working on some solar issues to try to offset that. You know, so so far so good.
Yeah.
And we don't have to look at $4 or $5 million to paint it in the future. No.
Sort of a humorous comment. If you're navigating on the water, that water tank was one of our things we used to locate our position. So now we lost it.
We call the Coast Guard.
Michael?
I'm all set. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Ed?
Ed?
Thanks, Al.
Don?
Yes, the town's got a great water department that they should be proud of.
We keep trying, believe me. Yeah.
It shows with the, congrats on the award, that's fantastic, 1 of 6
Oh, yeah.
in the state, that's really great.
Yep.
And do we have any need to be concerned if we're 70 million gallons more we use this year than last year?
Well, currently, the water table is as highest it's been in a long time, even with all the rain. But the town definitely is changing. You know, there's more development, more homes, more accounts. And if need be, if we get to a point that it's a concern, we'll be the first to notify the community and, in fact, implement saving measures to slow down the use.
Okay.
So that is all prepared and ready whenever it's needed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
report.
All right.
Excuse me. Colebrook Attenuation Project, we have the video to share.
Just, Madam Chair, 2 things. Just, I know on the Water Commission that there are other items on the agenda, so hopefully you're planning on sticking around for those other items.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I realized that I was remiss in inviting Mike Black I had an opportunity about probably 2 or 3 weeks ago to present to the men's breakfast about the Colebrook project. And I went on to their website, and in 3 minutes and 22 seconds, they do a great job of kind of outlining what the project is. And I think when we had a discussion on this topic maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think we need to do a better job kind of educating the public. So really what I was hoping to do tonight is just play the video for the public, and Jamie has it, I think, queued up and ready to go, so people get a sense for a simple overview of what we're attempting to do. The town, and more so HCT, it's their land and their project.
Right.
But just, I thought for 3 minutes, it's a good education.
Do you think we should hit the lights so the video shows better, or?
I
No?
No?
Well, because the people at home are watching it through.
Oh, it's, well,
It's only you.
no, I thought it would help the people at home, so that's fine. No, we're not gonna turn off the lights.
Cranberry farming has a long and respected history in Harwich and across the Cape. But oversupply of cranberries from the Midwest and Canada has pushed down prices, leaving Cape growers seeking alternatives for their bogs, like selling for conservation purposes to towns and local land trusts. The 66-acre Robert F. Smith Colebrook Preserve is in the heart of Harwich Port.
Colebrook comes from Grassy Pond, underneath Bank Street, goes through a bog, ends up in the waters of Saquatucket Harbor.
When the trust acquired the bog in 2001, it wasn't feasible for the trust to consider restoring it to cranberry use because the cost would have been excessive.
In partnership with the state's Division of Ecological Restoration and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we're embarking on a new and innovative approach to restoring the health and diversity of this wetland and stream landscape. We hope to set a new trajectory for the ecology, helping to enhance wildlife habitat, to improve water quality and flow, to really enhance the overall visitor experience. These retired bogs still harbor old agricultural impacts like ditches, sand layers across the wetland surface, channelization of streams.
Our objective is to restore a natural bottom stream. We're either going to completely excavate that sand layer, or we're going to break it up and churn it. Once that groundwater is able to get up, move around, a number of other ecological functions fall into place.
Right now, there's a series of deteriorating culverts and old infrastructure across the site, some of which threatens to collapse and block the flow of Colebrook. Some of those are stream crossings for existing walking trails. We hope to remove some of those decaying structures, replace them with pedestrian bridges. Some of the functions of a healthy wetland system include absorbing excess stormwater runoff, as well as providing resilience to sea level rise and other impacts in a climate-changing world.
For the trust to take advantage of this opportunity to restore a water body of this dimension really is an important contribution to water quality on Cape Cod.
We envision that the community will really embrace and appreciate the ecologically restored Colebrook Preserve with its more diverse wildlife habitats and wetlands and water flow and water quality and new and inviting walking trail experiences.
I just thought that was very well done. It's a simple explanation, and when they say improving the environment, that has nitrogen positive values to it too. So that's where the partnership with the town. But I just thought that it would be informational more so. I know some of the selectmen are obviously very familiar with this, but just for the general public. And we are working on the MOU that we will bring back to the board that goes with DER, Harwich Conservation Trust, and the selectmen moving forward with this project. So CDM, I met with them probably about 2 weeks ago to go over the elements, and they'll put together a draft and have that to HCT and back to the board.
No, that was good. Great video. Thank you.
Great job, Michael.
And now we will look at second meters for homes that have irrigation systems up for discussion under new business, and we have the water department here as well. So I know this conversation has come up a few different times in terms of talking about irrigation and metering and sewer and all of those pieces, so.
So, Madam Chair, maybe just to kind of set the table a little bit, and then I'll give Dan an opportunity. Obviously, with one of the items on the agenda here for under old business, I think, is the discussion of the language on the reworking of the Water Commission to a Water Wastewater Commission. And in that, there's a fair amount of concern, and I think this makes a lot of sense, that the Water Commission right now cleans water and sends it to the homeowner. If a homeowner goes and uses it to irrigate their lawn, it's not going down the sewer, and if it goes down the sewer, it needs to be retreated and put back into the environment. And I know Madam Chair in particular has raised this as a significant concern, that if people are getting clean water to put on their lawns, obviously we're paying to clean the water, but if the water is not being used and sent back to us to be cleaned the second time, if you would, then, there should be a process in which we only are being, or residents are only being charged for water that's coming back. So if you have, just as for instance, 100 gallons a day that you use, and you're using 25 gallons on your lawn, and using the 75 for public use that's going back into, or going into a sewer system, that 75 gallons needs to be cleaned, but that 25 gallons is already going back into the environment. So how do you capture that difference and not charge people for work that we're really not, in essence, doing? So I may defer to Dan in terms of the mechanics of how that would do, and I know I told him that the Water Commission has this under discussion, and they're reviewing this, and they haven't come up with a final program yet, but again, just to provide an update since they're here.
Thank you. Hi, Dan.
How's it going? Dan Pelletier, Water Superintendent. So the board did vote to support the installation of irrigation water meters. We still have to work on the back end exactly all the nitty-gritty details, if you will, but what we're anticipating is, as Chris mentioned, the water department will still bill and read the same meter that we always have, that one master meter right at the wall of your basement. And then we'll be allowing residents who are connected to the sewer system to get a separate irrigation meter. And then that meter would be read and deducted from the master meter to generate the sewer bills. So that is our plan moving forward. I have surveyed a number of communities who have water and wastewater, and they're all over the place. But I think the most logical thing is to bill people for what they're using going in and bill people for what we're treating on the way out. So
That's great news. And any other questions for anybody else here in terms of?
It's probably too early in the game, but is that something when you subtract one meter from the other, is that computerized, is that automatic, or does that take, is that an additional effort that your staff has to take care of?
yeah, so that's one of the nitty-gritty details that we still have to work out. So Neptune is the meter technology that we use, and when we read meters, it gets brought into that software, and then we bring that into Munis. So we still are working with the Munis reps to determine whether we're going to be doing that in their software or if it goes into the utility billing software within Munis, because Munis has the capability to, bill both water and sewer. So.
Okay, that's probably more than I needed to know, Dan, you're right. But I appreciate your effort to move this forward, because this is Julie, and I think all of us got comments. That's been a concern that people have had.
Michael?
Oh, just great news. I think that, coupled with Noreen's, is great news for East Harwich tonight.
Ed?
Well, we always talk this about watering lawns, but it also will be for irrigation of gardens and ornamentals and other things too.
Right. It would be anything that's after that meter.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As long as the public is watching, we've got the water commissioners and the selectmen here. I do want to take the opportunity of pointing out the obvious, that on the primary metering of the stuff that comes into your house, you probably really want to take care of leaks sooner rather than later, because you're going to get charged twice. Coming in, and it would be as if you were using it and getting it treated. So it's doubly important. It's already important to not waste water, but to Alan's point about conservation, just so everybody knows, once that sewer comes in, if the water's coming into your house and it just leaks it out into your sink, it doesn't matter. It's going to get billed as a sewage cost.
The other question I had, in terms of the meter cost, how much, do you have an idea yet, or is that?
Yeah, so they would be, and that's, again, some of the other details. So, you know, the regular 3/4 inch meters are $300 to $400. I presume, and again, these are some of the formalities, but I would presume that that would be a voluntary cost borne by the owner. As far as installation, it's a liability for town staff to be, you know, installing things on residents' plumbing, so we're still working out exactly that process to make sure that it's clean and the meter's installed properly. There's a backflow device. That account gets registered and tied to the other meter so that we can make sure it's all billed properly. So.
And for people at home to understand too, that the cost of having all that work done to have the second meter
Right.
is borne by them.
Right, and we've had, you know, I've had this question posed to me as well, and, you know, some people who just water their, you know, plants by hand. I was asked, you know, does it make sense for me to do this? And I said, you know, ultimately, once you pay the $400 for the meter and a plumber to come out and install it, you know, the gain on your investment really won't be worth it at $1.29 per 1,000 gallons of water, you know, so it's something to consider too when you're making that decision.
Right. Very, very true, right. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Dan, we appreciate it. And capital outlay votes and update. Chris, do you want to?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to go through in detail because I think we have that already scheduled for the meeting in December.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to do two things. One, just I really appreciate the work of the Capital Outlay Committee. They have gone through all the different items. They have their, excuse me, their recommendations on all the items that are listed that are within their purview. They do anything over $50,000. So that I have all their recommendations are now included in here, or should be included in here. So just so folks are aware that that update has been done. And then secondly, I know there was some interest on the board about kind of having twofold, kind of a simplified version of the capital plan, the items over 50,000. So Dana DaCosta took the material that I had in mind of all the requests into the summary. I think this may be something that when we put it into the warrant, what I would like to do is to have one summary version. This is what I did last year, have a summary version, and then a more complete version, because the complete version does show the funding source from free cash and the reconciliation of free cash. So having that as an appendix, I think, would have some value. But I just wanted to kind of get that information out to the board of the votes that were taken by the Capital Outlay Committee. And then also, if the format is something that people think is a little bit more readable, then I will kind of head in that direction. We did make some revisions last year to put it in, but just wanted to get some feedback, I guess, in terms of what Dana had done.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments from the board? Larry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, I may not be understanding this chart right, but we have the column with P, I assume that's for priority?
I'm sorry, Larry, which one are you referring to?
One after the P column.
Yes, that is prioritization. So on the form that we have that was designed,
Yeah, I
revised,
couldn't,
we had a priority and then sequence.
Yeah,
So if you had three things, which one of the three was most important, and was it critical or not critical?
okay. It wasn't clear to me, looking at this, how that was related to anything, because some ones were not, you know, wasn't taken as a costing, and some
Not everyone.
threes might be. I couldn't find any relationship between the priority and the actual what we're doing. So I was just
Yeah, we can
wondering
put
how
the,
they,
we attach it with the form, but we should put that in here or have a little summary of what that is.
or at least maybe go back and so there's some relationship of things we move ahead with.
Yep.
Because I don't, at least if it's there, I couldn't figure it out. I did have a question on, there's $200 for local $200,000 for local comprehensive plan. Does that entail, is that hiring a consultant, or what's that?
Yes.
To do that? Okay.
And if there's any ones in particular, you know, I could certainly have Charlene, actually, the town planner, did
Okay.
the presentation on that, but we can have them come out if the board has individual.
Well, I don't have
ones.
many, that just caught my eye as I was unclear on that.
But that is to hire an outside consultant.
And I guess my other just overall comment is that I think as a town, we have some tough work ahead of us, because after we've all talked about this, we're just spending a lot of money, and I think we're all hoping to have a break this year, and yet we're coming in with a $7 million debt. You know, smaller than past years, but it's still something we need to look at. We may not be able to do everything we want to do. But thank you. Capital Outlay usually does a great job.
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
I just would mirror Larry's comment. You know, we did tell the taxpayers last year when they voted $30 million in debt exclusions, we were going to take it easy this year. And it doesn't look like we're taking it easy, or at least being presented with not taking it easy. So I look forward to further discussions.
Ed? Don?
Yep. Still have my perennial discussion. This is simpler to read, but it still commingles things that are not capital items onto the capital plan. And I think that people, to Michael's point and to Larry's point, when they look at a master list that I was talking about, was a list of items that are competing for priorities with debt exclusions and borrowing, so that people knew what they might potentially be incurring in addition to what they're paying in taxes right now. This thing is so conflating so many different things, free cash, operating funds, borrowings, that it's completely useless for that purpose. So if you could come down just one more level, it's 50,000 and above that you anticipate borrowing for, then we'll really know what it is is in competition with what.
Noreen?
Thank you. I know it's early in the process, but sometimes if you don't get a line in, then it's harder to get in later on. So 2 items in the wastewater section. Last year, we funded an enterprise fund in the amount of $70,000 with the intent of building up funds to subsidize the user fees for the beginning portion when users connect to the system. Might only be a few hundred on it first, and it wouldn't be enough, you know, we can't charge them $1 million. So, but I was wondering, I thought the intention was to do that every year. It doesn't make sense to have done it last year and not this year. So I didn't see that item here.
It's in the, through you, Madam Chair, it's in the operating budget. It's not a capital budget item. So you will see it again in the operating budget.
Okay, so it's in the operating budget under what department?
We created last year a sewer department, a wastewater, I can't remember exactly what we called it, but it's in that line item.
Okay, all right.
But it's in the operating budget. Those aren't due in until the end of November. The wastewater enterprise fund.
Okay, second question. Many residents have put forward different versions of a hardship-type fund to give consideration to helping the cost of financially strapped residents against the cost of hooking up to the sewer service. So I'll just mention that that is being talked about at all of our meetings, and just about every place we go, I would say financial questions are about 1/3 of the questions we get. So I don't see any provision in here for this, and I'm hoping there will be something discussed before town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. Sorry, go ahead, Larry.
To add to Noreen's comment, I know at least one group has been, and I'm sure there's others, have been pulling the idea of could the town borrow money to then loan out at, say, 0, 1, or 2% to give a little low-cost zone, help to people who need it. And I know we've had some discussions on that. I think we need to have some further discussions on the legality of it to get it through. I know there's an interest in trying to, at some point, possibly formulate a warrant article to bring that in, it's a petition article to see what the actions could be. Before that happens, I think we need to have a good discussion. Is it possible? And because we're still talking about an override, because there'd probably be $2 or $3 million we'd have to set aside for this, for people to borrow, say, the number of homes for the phase. They'd pay it back, but it still has to come in as a override. But people are still pursuing that. If we don't do something, they may try to pursue it themselves. I've got back and said that we before they take action, let us give a chance first to pursue through the wastewater committee and through us. Do we have any creativity in making this happen to help out?
Okay. Ed?
As we consider that, it would be probably good to reach out to the county and involve their septic loan fund, because quite honestly, they're all set up to administer those sorts of loans to homeowners, where we would have to create a...
Yeah, that's always our first discussion point. That doesn't get a lot of traction because the interest rate is high compared to what they're hoping we could help out with.
But if we issued a $3 million bond,
we could use their process to do it.
Give it to, have them administer it for us.
No, good point, Ed.
Chris?
Just on this topic, we continue to work on it. Attorney Giorgio, who at one of these meetings had said that there are some possibilities, he had mentioned that. I think a couple things just by way of feedback. Number one, there is a statute that the county uses, and it has kind of specific language in it that if you borrow money at 3%, then you can add up to 2% of a surcharge. So that's where they come up with the 5% that they currently offer. He said that we would have to go through the route of special legislation. So we would borrow money at 3 or 4%, but not charge people the percentage. So we could put together some of that special act language. Another concept, and I'd like to kind of meet with the county on this, if the statute is clear and says that you can do up to 2% over what you borrow money at, that if the town were able to come up, I mean, it would probably be fairly modest money initially, but if we came up with $100,000 and funded it by free cash, so there is no borrowing cost, and then sent it to the county for the county to administer, then theoretically the county should be able to take that if they dedicated it for Harwich residents and only charge, it does say up to 2%, so we could ask the county too, that if their administrative costs aren't the full 2%, could they do 1%? As a for instance, that then would mean that people could go and borrow money at just the 1%. And I don't believe that would require any special legislation or anything of that nature, but that would require having some kind of understanding with the septic loan program to see if we're able to accomplish that.
Ed?
Well, you could do that out of free cash. You could also do it as a one-year, what do they call it?
Capital exclusion.
A capital exclusion at a larger amount.
Absolutely.
So you then don't incur any interest costs on the borrowing.
Yeah, actually, absolutely.
Noreen?
I'm glad to hear those comments. I just want to mention that we also get a lot of comments about financially hardship folks. So it's really two separate discussions, and I hope we have them both in the next few months. One that would help people in the percentage for any loan, but one that would be geared to people with lower incomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen.
Yeah, I agree. These are good, great comments that we're pushing ahead to see if there's things we can do to help. I would hope that we could, Chris, could bring this back and not next week, but maybe before the end of the year at least.
Yeah.
You know, that type of time frame, don't you, Madam Chair? So we
Yes, I
get the
think
word
it's-
out, because people are starting to be
Right,
concerned about it. I wouldn't want to let it to drag on forever.
right. No, I think both,
Yeah, no,
both
we're not trying
items.
to drag
Right,
it out.
No, I know that. You got a lot of things going on. That's why I'm saying that next
Yep.
week, but,
right.
you know.
No, we should bring that back probably, maybe the next January, probably.
First week in January
Yeah.
after the holidays.
Yeah, if I
maybe.
can get it by December, I'll see what I can do. I have a lot of it already drafted up, or the attorney has it drafted up, so
Okay.
we may be able to do that sooner.
Could, one other point. Chris, could you just send us some Dow points and some of the possibilities you're exploring?
Yeah, one thing I heard, though, I just want to be sure, I mean, I've been under the impression that we're trying to do this for folks that are kind of in desperate need and have income factors, and that's what I'm pursuing, but I heard two things. We're going to set up a loan program for everybody, and then set up a second one for low interest.
No, I don't think so.
For low income,
No, I don't.
it's just the low income.
Yeah, I think this worry about
Okay.
that right now.
I
But if you
want to
could-
make sure I heard that correctly.
If you could help just give some of that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I think we do need some clarification there, because there are gonna be people who need loans, who don't have $8,000 or $10,000 sitting in the bank, and they're gonna need access to that money too. Then, to Noreen's point, there are other people out there who financially should qualify for some type of a hardship.
Right.
So I see them as two separate issues. So I'm just
No,
trying to
that's-
clarify
no,
my
yeah.
point.
I would agree with that, because
But the county right now, I thought it was like $16 million. I mean, they have
Yeah, they have-
funds that are more than that,
bundle
that are
of
available to do
So,
this.
right,
So
so-
it's available today
Directly through the county.
through the
Yeah.
county.
Right, okay. So just to make those clarifications, though, that there are,
good point.
there's monies available through the county for those who can, take a normal loan, but then we have a financial hardship issue to discuss as well. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually agree with the chair, because there's still that seam of like 1%. If you may not currently have cash flow problems, but if you declared bankruptcy, for instance, they want to know both that they can add something to your, an encumbrance to your title, but they also want to know about your credit score. And they do turn down some people. So if we want 100% compliance with the sewer, we got to think of 100% of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
No,
fair
you're
enough.
right.
That's-
Right.
That's good.
So, okay, so we'll bring that back in possibly December, but January if not by then. Ed?
Just one last quick point, on the capital outlay budget.
Yes.
How does the comprehensive plan qualify as a capital outlay?
It has duration of more than 5 years, and it's over $50,000. It is in
Well,
the
it's an
final analysis,
expenditure.
it is a report, so it is a product that's being delivered. I'll say submitted it on the form, so.
You know,
I shouldn't say it like that, but.
My impression always was what the capital outlay budget was for, is for those items that are things, or buildings, or land. Capital, comprehensive plan is a requirement of state government. It's not, it's something we have to
Right,
do.
it's a regulatory
It's a
compliance.
general government expense, not a capital expenditure. And anyway, just,
Okay.
So, are you looking to have that piece removed? I'm just asking.
Yeah,
I'd like to
I
have
would
a-
like to see.
I'd have a check
I would
first,
like to hear the justification.
Yeah,
for
I
it,
want to hear that first.
Because it doesn't make sense to me.
I think what you mean on you're talking about just the funding, not necessarily the project itself?
No,
just
the
whether it should be
project
capital or
is
not.
something we have to do, and it's a very necessary and worthwhile
Yeah.
project. It just doesn't seem to fit. It's sort of like
Okay.
the square
can-
peg in the round hole.
I can relook at that and see if I can get some input.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. We'll go to 2018 holiday hours. Do you want to just go through this, Chris? I mean, I know we talked about it last week.
Yeah, so, thank you, Madam Chair. I did, at the last meeting, kind of bring up, my apologies for kind of being a little bit tardy on this, but the request is, we do have by contract, Thanksgiving is a holiday, and the day after Thanksgiving is a holiday. Christmas is a holiday, This town has a element in it in which, this is the only town I've been in, where the selectmen can declare holidays by contract. So it has been the past practice of administration to submit for different days that make some sense. I think last year, you know, I tried to have it where we had a week in which we weren't going to be open too often to try to make it a little bit more user-friendly. This one is much more straightforward. We're looking for November 19th, which is this Wednesday, that we would be open for the full day to seek a half-day. It is one of the most heavily traveled days of the year to see if people could leave work at noontime. And then also on December 24th is Christmas Eve. I would say in most other contracts that I've seen, it's usually a half-day. We do not have that in this community. So Christmas Eve would be a full day of work. And I am requesting that this would be, the 24th would be a full day off. So that way Town Hall would be closed on Monday and then Christmas falls on a Tuesday this year. The net total of those two would be a day and a half for Selectmen's holidays. One thing that we did avoid from last year, people wanted to come in on the last day of the year to kind of pay taxes. I know there was some tax reform elements that really drove that, but there are some people that have business that they want to engage with the town on New Year's Eve. So we did not recommend anything relative to New Year's Eve. So it's a day and a half for those two, Christmas Eve and then the day before Thanksgiving as a half day.
Right. Any discussion by the board? Larry?
Well, Chris, if I'm reading this right, I think your calendar is different than mine. The day before Thanksgiving is the 21st, right? Not the 29th, because today's the 19th.
Today's the 19th, yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
You know, it's a clarification.
The date of the memo was the 19th, so.
Yeah. I guess I'm okay with it. I think we're very generous on this, you know, thinking about other employees in our town and getting days off, but it's been past practice, so.
Michael? Ed?
No.
Don?
I will say, to Larry's point, A, nobody gets rich working for town government as the non-supervisory people, and B, they're our best asset. So I'd support this.
I'm not arguing that, it's just, you know, it's nevertheless, it's,
So it is the
unfortunate.
21st. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, that was a typo.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the town administrator and that we give the town employees the 21st off as a half-day and the 24th of December off as a full day.
Yeah, second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you on behalf of the employees.
Thank you.
And the half-day they take off in the afternoon, not in the morning.
Yes. It would be an
We'd
odd.
be closing at noontime.
It would be an odd travel day otherwise.
Appointments to the Harwich Center Initiative Committee, terms expire on December 31st, 2019. Lincoln Hooper, Paul Doan, Lane Mann, and Dan Wolf. Do you want to talk to any of the pieces of this, Don or Michael?
I just said that these are the folks we interviewed last week and selected them all. 4 will give them a quorum so they can start their meetings. We got another person with an application today, and we're still looking for two more people.
Great, thank you. I got a vote.
Just one comment. Thanks for the interview committee. I know they've been anxious to get this started. As far as I know, they're planning to meet on at 4 o'clock at November 27th. And I want to mention that because, as you know, this will be posted, but it's an open meeting, so I'm hoping other people who aren't on the committee will, if anyone's interested in Harwich Center, will attend. Again, that's 27th at 4 p.m. Here at Town Hall.
Michael?
I'd nominate Larry as the liaison to this committee if we need one.
That's a good idea. Don?
Yes, but before you nominate anyone to a committee that doesn't exist, I'd like to move that we approve the nominations of Lincoln Hooper, Paul Doan, Lane Mann, and Dan Wolf as members of the Harwich Center Initiative Committee with terms all to expire on December 31st, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Ed,
Oh, Ed, I'm
Well,
sorry.
Just a comment, I've had a long involvement with Harwich Center in its previous inception of the Center Committee, and I hope to be able to attend the meetings as they come along and provide some historical perspective if questions come up over past studies. Unfortunately, this first meeting I'll have to miss because I have a board meeting for agency I'm a member of that I'll have to attend.
Michael?
I want to renominate Ed.
Renominate.
I want to have Ed be the nomination, not Larry.
Okay.
We never got to Larry.
So, we're not taking action on the liaison tonight, are we?
We so far haven't taken action on the actual.
Right, so we've got a,
Yeah, hold on.
did anyone second that?
It was
I did.
Michael second.
Michael, you seconded that? Okay. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, under old business, special legislation, water, wastewater commission, charter amendments. Don?
On this one,
Chris?
Madam Chair, we had at town meeting last year a effort to try to create the Water and Wastewater Commission. That does require a charter change, so there was a charter change language that was put together. We obviously didn't get that material vetted and carefully reviewed, so I wanted to at least bring up the same language that was presented before. I know that we did have Mr. Pelletier and myself met with John Giorgio, and from I was at the town meeting, and I think one of the focal points of some of the discussion on the language was that there's a sentence in here that says that following the initial approval, the town administrator would be responsible for kind of overseeing all expenditures. I think what that was attempted to do was just to kind of acknowledge the role of the town administrator as chief procurement officer. But in discussion, I think it's probably safest just to take it out. Why restate what's already stated in the charter? I know at least from discussions that Dan and I had, as well as with Attorney Giorgio, we don't have any issue with removing that language. But I think it does have some merit to just make sure we have a discussion in public, so that way, as we build the warrant, to try to get the warrant done a little bit early, can we start to go at the work that was done last year, make the revision, and see if we can kind of move this forward to make sure that we're in the wastewater business. I think just so for the general public, the concept behind this and what this accomplishes, or the intent of it, is that the Board of Selectmen would retain the capital authority and the regulatory authority for rules and regs to design out and build the system. And then once the system becomes operational and online, the water department already does an outstanding job of billing and monitoring and overseeing the water system, and that this would then have, that authority would go to a new water wastewater commission. The language in here does keep it as an elected body, and it moves from 3 members, I believe, to 5 members. So that's really just because they're taking on additional responsibilities. I think the thought was to have some additional members to kind of maybe have some of that diversity of opinion in the deliberations. But I think that's what this is attempting to accomplish. I think the language gets us to where hopefully we need to be, but there may be some tweaks that may need to be done to it. But I think it'd be good to just commence a discussion and see if we can get this thing finalized so we can put the warrant together.
Thank you, Chris. Don?
Yeah, several things. Thank you, Madam Chair. The first one is that this never made its way through the Charter and Bylaw Committee last year, in addition to what was said at town meeting floor. So that has to happen. I mean, this is a pretty significant change. Secondly, I'm a little mystified about the way it's listed in the agenda. I'm not reading into anything, but it says special legislation, but this is being done by going to town meeting, getting 2/3 vote, and then coming back and getting to a town election again the subsequent year, like we always used to do it.
It does, that's the
So
intent.
it's not special legislation, notwithstanding whatever the agenda says. And finally, from just at the very top, I would suggest that I already have a change. Amend the Town of Harwich Charter to change the name of the Water Commission and Water Wastewater Commission. I suggest that we also add the words, "and to add additional duties and responsibilities there too." It's not a name change, it's actually a significant job change.
Okay.
Okay.
Ed, you have any comments? Michael?
Timing, I guess, is my only question. I mean, how long are we gonna wait for this? And what's the shortest route to go? Because, we heard last week, and we talked about this, we're all struggling with who's gonna take charge of this at this point, and talking about funding a project manager to work the whole project. And I think that when we hired Dan Pelletier, it was hired with this in mind. And I think that has been the goal. So, if special legislation is quicker than this process, I'm thinking we need to think about that, or at least have a conversation with the water commissioners and see how we could try and put this in place sooner than later, rather than add another employee.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. But to what point, though? Because they're not gonna be taking over the system until it's built. We're not even gonna be starting to build until this May, and there isn't gonna be anything to hand over to them to operate until this would go to the next town year's election.
Michael?
I think to the point, Don, that right now, the only person at the helm on this is the town administrator, and we, the Board of Selectmen, aren't gonna put this together. Certainly, we're gonna be in control of it, but we're not gonna do the work. I mean, 2 weeks ago, unless I'm mistaken, our conversation was, who's gonna run this whole thing now? Not who's gonna run this whole thing in 2 years.
With the sewer authority, though.
Yeah, I would disagree somewhat, Michael, where you're going, because we've had a long discussion about the board remaining in control of implementing the CWMP and being sure, and doing the construction phase, once that's put, then we'll hand it over to the water committee to take on operations. So we still need to be someone to pull all that together before it's handed over.
Michael?
I agree with you, Larry, but we, the board, aren't gonna put anything together. We are gonna be in charge of the money, like we're gonna be anyway. Unless we put this before town meeting, the money's not gonna get spent. Are we going to design this, or are we going to continue to rely on just CDM Smith to put all this together for us? Because our conversation last week, or 2 weeks ago, was very different. And as far as the details go, this board's not putting together the details on any of it, unless I'm mistaken.
Ed?
Well, I don't think anybody ever expected the Board of Selectmen to put together the details on any of it. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather when I found out some of the pipes are going to be 29 feet deep. I had no concept, so this is not my specialty, designing sewer systems. We're there, though, to oversee the contracts that we've let to the designers, and at a certain point, we'll be there to oversee the contracts that will be let to the people that will build that system. And my point 2 weeks ago was that I feel that rather than relying on the town engineer, the town administrator, to oversee the construction company doing it, that it would be good to hire a project manager to represent the town in oversight of the activities of the constructing of the system. Once it gets the systems completed and operational, and the hookups start to begin, that I think falls to the purview of the sewer, the water wastewater commission, because they oversee hookups now as part of their purview. That's not something that's going to be a strange activity for them. And the question is, when does that happen, and whether or not we really, in fact, actually need the charter change in place for the Board of Selectmen to ask and designate the Water Commission, as it exists now, to oversee that hookup procedure. I think we could ask them to do it now and handle the billing.
Dawn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Ed, but one more issue with this, and I don't consider it to be an academic issue. There is a plain difference other than just speed. If you go to the state legislature, first of all, you're not guaranteed that it's going to necessarily pass in that session. But secondly, at town meeting, with something this important, it changes the rules. To go under special legislation, it's a simple majority, 50% plus one. To go the other route, it's 2/3 vote along with the ballot. I don't consider that an impediment. I consider that a buy-in. Because you're locking in people who are actually getting to approve of what they want to do, because it's massively expensive. And I'm not really me personally, I'm not really looking for a shortcut on that. I want people to buy in. And 50% plus one ships it up to Beacon Hill, and they can and have in the past changed substantively what it is you sent to them.
Chris?
Just a couple things. We did have a meeting today to talk about a variant of the owner's project manager, so we are working on trying to design out a revision to that RFP, so we'll hopefully have something back hopefully in the next couple weeks, have something, so just on that topic. I think the one word of caution, I do agree with Dawn in terms of the process on this one. I think that if the board votes and can reach consensus with the Water Commission to have this language be agreed to, then let's get it to the Charter Review Committee and let's get on the agenda. The process that would follow is it would go to town meeting. If town meeting votes it, then it would be on the ballot for, I guess it would be May of 20 is when it would be on the ballot for, so then it becomes operational right after the May of 20. It's my understanding, in my last town, we did most of the actions through special act. We didn't go all the time through the process that's used here. You have two mechanisms. One of the things that the legislature will do is, if they think it's at all controversial or a significant variation of what you're currently doing, they could ask for have it on the ballot anyway. And I think something like this, this isn't a small, minor technical change. This is kind of a more substantial change. So really what I was kind of hoping to accomplish tonight is to get us on a track to get the language squared away, get it into the pipeline, so that way we can get for town meeting this year, and then be the election for next year, whether it's special legislation or whether it's a charter process which requires the election. We may end up there anyway. I do think, to Dawn's point, if it's done in hometown here, locally, they're less likely to make changes to it. And as we've seen, House Council has already changed things that are fairly straightforward. So it is it's certainly their prerogative. But really what I was trying to do tonight is, I think we were fairly close in terms of consensus, and just see if we can get the consensus done, and then get the actual language started to be deliberated on.
Thank you, Chris.
Can we get a promise that they'll be taking this up?
Do you want to speak to that, Alan?
As far as the language goes?
Yeah, if you just come up to the mic.
Yeah, I just, the thing about this whole thing is that, everything water or wastewater would do gets a complete review by all of you, plus, finance committees and whatever players that's involved. So that when everything gets voted, everybody knows where the direction, what's happening, everything, it happens, and it happens the way you want it to happen. So it's pretty well laid out. So as far as, I'm okay. We take the language out of there, and it's pretty straightforward. I could see it going ahead, and again, get it done sooner rather than later. Doesn't matter to me in what direction. All I know is that you folks initially said you wanted to construct it, you want to get it in operation and turn it over.
Okay.
Who's going to argue with that?
Thank you.
So
You're good with?
Eliminate the language in that article, and I would say it's fine.
Okay.
All right?
So there's,
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
in
as
terms of,
to
is
take
it,
a vote.
everybody good with that? So
Yeah.
that's our consensus?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need a vote on it?
No, I think with the board's permission, I'll amend that language, put in there that there's more detail than just a name change. I don't think that was the intent. It was just simple.
So one other thing, so if Dan is going to oversee the project and follow through, that I would look to see you fund some portion of the salary for that time that he could draw on, and whatever expenses he might need, and we'll go from there and see where it goes. But I noticed he's already involved and done quite a bit and talked to folks and talked about hookups and things of that nature. So if you want to go that way, it's just a matter of fund that so that it doesn't fall on the enterprise fund on the water side of it. All right?
Just to that point, Madam Chair, the town did also approve the sewer enterprise account. So the idea is that any work that Dan does would be coming out of the account. I would just caution, the sewer enterprise account, I could make a claim that my time should be come out of that. I think to get us started, I think there needs to be some understanding that we need to get this started and get going. And as we bring customers on and as that fund gets built up, then I think it's 100% appropriate to start funding some of the positions out of it. But anything that's done is going to be subsidy, it's going to be the taxpayers coming up and then subsidizing it. And we already have, a fairly hefty $240 or $250,000 bill that we're going to have with Chatham once we hook up there. And then with DHY, depending on how things go there. So we have a fairly heavy subsidy. I think certainly that's appropriate, and as we build those budgets going forward.
Yep.
But I think to, commence funding him like 50% now, it would just be a hardship, quite honestly, onto the town at this point.
So we wouldn't look to do that until we've enacted the change in terms of 2020, in terms of subsidizing.
Yes, I think that's probably safe to say. We do have the enterprise account, so we could legally probably do that. I think the charter, having this charter change in place probably makes more sense to
Right.
give it legal structure to it.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go
But
ahead.
rather than your opinion, what really has to happen here is, Chris has to change the language to the point
Yep.
where it takes out the one thing, adds the other.
Yep.
Then you have to post it to your meeting and actually vote whether you do or don't accept the language and
Yep.
report that back to us so
Yep.
that we can take a position on it and send it to the Charter Committee.
All right, so we'll put that on our next agenda and address that, and whatever it does to make this thing easier, we're not going to stand in the way, so we'll do what we can to help you.
And it also clarifies the management of this position, which is currently hybrid. I mean, it was hired as a water wastewater, but there is no wastewater in the charter, it's even there. So it would clarify that you hire and fire that position.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Yep.
I'll make the revisions and then ask to have it on both agendas.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
all right.
That's okay.
Noreen, did you have a comment?
Just a quick one. As far as subsidizing other people's salaries, it seems to me in the enterprise fund article last year, it was really clearly defined as being only used for those user fees to subsidize that. So if it was spent in any other manner, I remember even we had more actually, and it was going to include brochures by CDM Smith and other things, and we removed that money. So unless something is explained or stated that it's going to be used for something else, I would hope that that money would stay to be used for that purpose. But the other, I just had a quick question. I have no objection to it, but I'm just wondering what the thinking was. You differentiate at the top of the second page between the manner of approval from the water department to the sewer system. by saying, following initial approval by the town administrator. I certainly have no objection, I'm just curious why the thinking is different. If the water and wastewater department is gonna run the show, then why is there a qualifier on sewer issues?
That's the clause that's coming out.
That's coming out.
That was the issue that came out. That's what's coming out.
Never mind.
Never mind.
Never mind. Yeah.
Madam Chair, so if the language could be rewritten and send it down to us, we get a look at it, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
I think if I may, we had discussion about project manager, project coordinator, or OPM, whoever we're talking about. We do need to give, I think, some serious thought to that. You've all heard the expression, you get so busy chopping wood, you don't take time to sharpen the axe. In some ways, I think that's where we're going with this right now. We have so many people trying very hard to help everyone that we're in fact trying to muscle it through. And we need to take a pause at this point and see how do we best do the things that we're running around trying to do. Educate them on their system, how much that can be done on other media, on social media, on TV programs, and so we lessen the burden that Dan and Megan are spending on this project, and that we're going in CDM Smith. We're at a point now where we're gaining knowledge. We have a lot of different people trying to do a lot of things to help folks along. Now's the time to take a pause and say, how can we structure that so that it's available to them? The other thing is, it's unfortunate truth is that we're not able to talk to everyone. At some point, we're going to have to say that maybe 80%, maybe it's the 80-20 rule. Maybe 80% of the people will take the initiative to really find out themselves what's going on, and that's all we can do. We can't continue to burden, other folks to do that. So I would like to take that and be sure that's part of our discussion as we go forward, rather than just keep adding more resources to it, how we do the structure. And that's part of the discussion that, Chris, I, and Evan had it before too, and I think that's an important element.
All right. Thank you, Larry. So, for now, at least you have an idea of what way we're gonna go and make the
We'll
change.
make those, they're fairly minor changes, so we'll make those changes and get that out.
Right. So, B, under old business, 4 Central Avenue amendment. We discussed this earlier this evening in executive session.
So maybe, Madam Chair, just for the general public, there was a property known as 4 Central Ave that the town meeting asked, the selectmen asked town meeting to dispose of it. The town meeting did approve to dispose of it. There was a process that was conducted. There was a bid that was received. In the details of putting together the purchase and sale, there was a concern, and actually in the documents for the bid, we did put that in, that we didn't want someone to acquire a small piece of property that's really only available for parking a couple of vehicles on and have them attempt to construct something. So we did amend the bid process to say that the land would stay in its natural state, and the request that came back from the potential winning bidder was that can we at least park cars on it and use it for when guests come. So really the topic that was covered this evening in the executive session was to make those revisions to the purchase and sale document and related, so now we can schedule the closing and actually effectuate the sale of that. The asset or the value coming in would be in the neighborhood of about $50,000. And just a reminder for folks, because we don't do this all the time, but sale of land actually goes into a sale of land account, and it can only be used for capital appropriation or land acquisition type of expenditure. So it wouldn't be used to offset operating costs or anything of that nature.
Thank you, Chris. Do you need any direction from us on that? We already...
You did vote in executive session to
exactly.
pursue that, so I think you're just acknowledging that publicly.
Thank you. Recruitment of interim housing authority member discussion, which we already discussed this as well. So, is there any further discussion? Yeah. Okay.
There was an ad that was out on October 18th, so anyone that's interested in applying, you hate to have a joint meeting and have only one candidate for two positions. So if people do have an interest, that will be coming up, so.
Go ahead, Don.
But that ad is separate and distinct from the legal advertisement that we're going to hold a joint hearing.
Absolutely.
Right, and.
One is a job recruitment ad and one is a
Right.
public hearing.
Right, okay.
A public meeting.
And D, parking committee status. Don?
We have got to the point where we've got 5. We've got 3 people from the community that were, I guess it was 1 business and 2 resident. John Mahan still has to be sworn in, because we appointed him, but he didn't. We also, just because I spent a considerable amount of time this afternoon on the appointment stuff, we have to send out letters, even though they're only going to go inside the building for one of them.
For the appointments?
We've already approved, there's no appointment necessary because we approved ex officio by job title in the charge that we approved, that we want the town planner, the executive director of the chamber. What they do need is a letter from us because of the approval that they can get sworn in. When that happens, when John gets sworn in, even though we still have 2 vacancies, they can actually meet because they'll have a quorum. Put my 2 cents in again. Everybody was here and they were really upset about the status of parking in the summer, but we need to populate the committee to be able to fix the problem. So if even a fraction of the people who showed up are willing to serve, it would be wonderful.
There's still one more to interview that
Yeah.
we're waiting for a mutually agreed on date.
But we need to get to 7.
Yeah, and we need to, you're right, though, this is a priority, and we talked about it at length, about it being a priority, so it'd be great to be able to make some sort of
I wrote the
action.
charge, and Michael and I met the people who were willing to apply for it, so we can't manufacture candidates.
Right, no, and it's really important that, we have this discussion and be able to have some sort of a plan prior to the summer, and this committee's status.
Yeah, May it ends.
Yeah, it ends in May, so that's an issue as well. So hopefully you'll be able to populate the other members of the
August
committee.
31st.
And town administrators report. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just several things this evening, but I'll try to go through quick. The IT department at the county is engaged in doing their work. They did have a little bit of an issue of, just took a little bit of time delay for the county to have their formal session and vote that. But the work is underway, and he actually, Bill Travers is planning on coming out tomorrow. So we hope to have a report in a fairly short amount of time to bring back for the Board of Selectmen. So there's 2 parts to the contract that was awarded to the county. One part was to do an overall review of our system and make recommendation, and then the second was to provide backup services to our IT director, Foster. So those are the 2 components. The next item I have is on the Affordable Housing Trust. We did have our first meeting last week. I did volunteer to be the chair of that, so I am the chair of that committee. It is an open meeting, an open session, committee, so all the meetings will be posted and published. And we will be doing some advertising efforts. The vice chair was Dawn. Dawn agreed to be vice chair, so we did have those 2 appointments made.
Misery loves company.
I'll see a lot more of Dawn. So just in terms of that, one thing I think that we will be probably focusing on is, so we hit the ground running and have anything that we need for town meeting. We probably will look at parcels. Any parcel that is in town selectmen's control, as a for instance, would have to be specifically designated for affordable housing. So we are working on a list of town-owned property that we could use for affordable housing. So we will be bringing that back in the form of a warrant article to get going on that.
What time are you meeting? What day and time?
We haven't scheduled, I think we're kind of shooting for Thursday afternoons is what we're at least shooting for at this point. But we didn't schedule another one only because of the holiday season.
Right.
But we are planning on recording it.
Yes, we will hopefully have these televised. So we have the ability to televise in that room now, so we just have to push buttons. So once I get coordinated and synced up with my cable department, we'll start doing that, so we will have them televised. That's more on my end than on the other end. On the next one is kind of interesting. You know, we got a letter from DEP on the 0 interest rate. And I had an inquiry today from the local press. You know, what is the significance of that? And we're looking at borrowing about just shy of $25 million for phase 2 over 30 years. The savings, instead of having a 2%, but having a 0%, is $16 million. So just to kind of let that sit for a little bit, you know, when we say and the models that we've done are the 2%, because that's what SRF allows for, but because we've partnered up with another community and because we're doing nitrogen reduction, we're eligible. And what this letter says is that we've been preliminarily or conditionally approved for the 0%. So, you know, we're in the queue, and the significance of that is pretty big. And I just think it's worthwhile. We talk about saving, you know, all these interest dollars are money that comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. And to save $16 million is a good win for the community. And I think it does bode well for DHY that, again, doing things not just by ourselves, but in concert with others, does give us the opportunity to get that 0% and save a fairly significant amount. So I thought that was a kind of an eye-opening thing as I had that request made of me today. We did also receive an additional $136,000 from a supplemental Chapter 90 apportionment. That Chapter 90, just to remind folks, are dollars that the town uses to improve our roadways. It's one of the primary funding mechanisms that we have for the roadways. So we did get an additional $136,000. The legislature approved more money for that endeavor. And then just lastly, I just want to wish the board members and the community at large just a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully have a safe holiday and particularly safe travels during those holiday seasons.
Thank you, Chris. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As long as the town administrator brought up Chapter 90, which brings you to roadways, I can't be the only one that's had this happen to me, but I've had dozens of people talk to me about the roads being opened up and how come we're doing that and then we're opening them again and we're paying more money. Everybody needs to understand there's a lot of moving parts here. What they just experienced in town was, for the large part, was funded by National Grid because they needed to put gas pipes in. It couldn't be done in conjunction with what we're doing, but they're going to see roadways open next year that are the sewer openings. And then there's Chapter 90 pavings. So they're all separate things. And I can assure the public, on behalf of the board, it's not like we're not mindful of this. We couldn't open the roads once and put everything in because they're all different. And they're all different funding sources.
And to that point, I think the National Grid is still on hold, aren't they?
Oh, no.
No, they start chugging along again.
No, I mean, they were underway, and then when the Columbia Gas issue happened, because I deal with National Grid for my work, and they were on hold until the state allowed them.
Certified their
So they were
pressure
only
valves.
allowing them to set
No, we've had crews going. I don't think.
No,
we've
they
had
stopped for
any-
4 or 5
They've been
days.
4 or
stopped,
5 days here, okay.
But
unless they're back to work on Depot, are they?
They're back to
they,
work on
they
cleaning.
are.
Okay,
But-
so
but
then
they-
they're back.
But they stopped, not because of the issue in the north of the state, but because they had a collapse of one of their ditches in Yarmouth. And OSHA closed the entire project down until they could review.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
the state also indicated that they were under review of all their practices, because I spoke to the National Grid rep that we deal with down here, and that was what I was told specifically. But they may be back.
But the main
The point is, the
point
roads are
is
getting
that
ripped up.
we are not paying, as a town, on our taxes for this particular thing
Right.
that they just went through. That is part of the National Grid upgrading of their pipelines. There wasn't any way for that to happen with the water lines.
Right, no, you're right. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.
Thank
I
you.
didn't say all
Without
in
a
favor,
selectmen's
did I?
report. Happy Thanksgiving.